506, when the business manager went out for a whopping $4 million almost in debt, the district had already started to ask for new money back then, and it went down in flames. So what did that debt cost us by the time we pay it off in 2021 is $1.3 million.
Yep.
The savings since '09 by not having one helped offset the cost of that. Perhaps we could have kept a business manager if we weren't in debt, paying those kind of.
That's about a tenth a year, and we had 10 new buses. Okay, you had to buy those buses somewhere. How would you have got those buses?
And one more point.
How would you have gotten those buses?
One more
How would you
point
have gotten those buses?
Is
Wait a
Ron
minute, answer me.
Stow,
How would you have gotten those 10 buses?
we would have got them the way we're doing them now.
Oh,
Within the
okay, so we wouldn't have been able to
resources we
transport
have
our kids
pay
to
for
school.
them.
We wouldn't have been able to transport our kids to school because we would be buying 1 or 2
Yes, you
buses a
would
year.
have. Yes,
All right.
you would have.
Okay, here's the plan right here.
Let's get,
Okay,
wrap
here's
it
the
up.
plan.
Let's
You could have had
summarize
13
it now.
buses
This
for
is
that
what we're here
interest
for.
rate.
First of all, we need to get a business manager in order for the plan to work. In order for the plan to work, we need to get a business manager. Okay, we look at Highland and that now. What I didn't like about the study was a lot built into it. If you look, there was 15% built into everything. Okay, I took this at the base. We need to, first thing when we talk to the business manager, what would the business manager do? So I go out, I get contract, I get bids on it. Okay, I see what, where we're gonna go and that. So we go here, right? So these are, I put as high priority, it's $56,000. The drainage, Coal Bend, they've been there, they've been like this for a while. There's another year, try to get a business manager in there to look at it, is that gonna hurt? I don't know. In fact, I'd like to have the city come out and, maybe the city engineer to look at this here, this gas lines. That I consider a safety issue, and if it has been that long and has been that big of a safety issue, we should address that for that little bit of money a long time ago, okay? One of the things, let's talk about safety issues. When we said we didn't have a business manager, you'll see it in there, is we had how many? Over 100 fire code violations last year. That cost us a ton of money to correct, cost us a ton of money. That focus is what I need. That focus is what I need in here.
Hold on,
That's the
we
focus.
need some clarification here, and I'm going to give Jason a little thinking time, but there was a change with all the fire inspections. It was done locally, and the summer you're referring to, the state actual fire inspector, there was a change in their regulations.
Correct.
You want to elaborate on some of the things that?
The state changed everything in the mandate book and updated it, and then we got a state inspector on top of it. Now, as you know, when you get inspectors, they could be all from the same office, and every one of them are looking for different things. We've had the same inspector since I've been here. That year it changed.
How long did it take us to correct all this?
About a year.
A year. It took us a year to correct.
But my point is.
You don't know you're in violation until you realize that
Until
they
they
changed
tell
it.
you, it doesn't
Right,
matter who.
especially if they changed it.
Things stacked up by the fire protection. Okay, do you know that's a violation? Okay, that was one of it. Okay, boxes stacked up, that was in several buildings. Doors that won't close properly. Do you know that's a violation?
All right, let's.
Okay. I mean, if you want to get into this, I have all the detail
We
outside.
don't.
I can bring it in.
I don't
We
want
don't want to
bring it
get
in.
into it, Rod.
Okay.
We came here for a completely
Okay,
different
now we're gonna
purpose.
get, this is what,
He's not
so we're
listening.
here, okay? So we come here and we have, okay, do we do these or not? And this, I'm not sure.
This is why we're here
Yeah,
today.
this is why we're here, right here. Okay.
You're pointing now, everybody else will have a
Now,
chance.
this is how I'm here, but in order for this to work, I need this to work. We need this to work. As a district, we need this to work.
All right.
Okay, now, so, and we have on the roof here, the roof I put as a high priority. Roof, I think we have to continue with the roof, okay? Especially the way that roof is. Now, I'm not sure, all of a sudden we came up with an alternative bid here, using insulated versus non-insulated material, basically the same thickness, the same mills, everything else, that I'm not sure of, okay? Alternative, do we purchase a bus or do we go into lease a bus or whatever over the next so many years, lease purchase, okay? Now, that's $600,000. I'm saying That's about our capital fund for next. Now, we've pretty much spent the capital fund for this year by looking at the report, our report. So that would be like next year's capital fund, a whole $600,000 if we decide to do that, or we just take it out of general fund, whatever. But, you know, this is a big hunk here. Now, I put these two together, because what we realized in here, when I looked at, is we have the fixing the drain, and we have the abatement. I'm assuming the abatement is the asbestos abatement on the inside of that room that's not being used. Why it is floor tiles. For its asbestos on floor tiles. And so do we go in, you know, if no one's using that room, do we go in and take the tile up now? Or do we do a different, when we get a business manager or something to look at this and do that as an overall? Because there's a lot of rooms in Lakeview that needs floor tile. If you go in there, they're down to concrete, and that's it. I think we did paint the concrete, right? Yeah. So we're down to painted concrete and no tiles at Lakeview. Yeah, the inside, I mean, I went and looked at a couple of rooms in Lakeview, and they're not.
So let's just ride.
Okay. Now, how do I get the money? Okay. Capital requirements is about, if I float a bond, okay, right now, okay, 15-year time what we did, the 300,000, okay, the payoff on that would be 300,000 a year, 4,500. Now there's interest, implied interest. We'd only get maybe about 3.2 million of this, okay, in here, of this 4.5. We'd only get around 3 million, and the buses would be about $80,000. So we'd get about $80,000, which would be probably close to 10 buses again, 9 buses, okay. But this is what the annual cost would cost the district if we do that, okay. So this costing the district $400,000 a year, right? If now, where do I get the funds at? Okay, here's where I can get the funds, and really without putting much of effect on the district. Wouldn't hurt the district much more. Eliminate IB, Indian Trail. It's worth $150,000 a year. Okay. Okay. Have an IB coordinator. We have job openings right now. So we could fill that the IB coordinator could fall into that job opening and that, and without displacing anyone or anything else, and then the IB fees and the training, that's, we're looking at about $150,000 a year. Okay, the math intervention coordinator. Okay, that means we have intervention specialists, okay, and we have, and only in math, we have someone up here that coordinates the math intervention. That's going to leave the district. We don't replace that. It's not putting the whole, you know, there's 100,000 retirement. So when I'm talking about retirements, when we go out and we hire people to replace when we need people, there's longevity in the contract, okay? So what you get, you get this the first year, then slowly it goes down over 10 years. But what you get is, I hire someone in at $40,000 a year, someone retires who's making $70,000 a year. It's like a $30,000 difference. Roughly adding, we have more, I just threw in, you know, saying, okay, this is 80,000, I'll be conservative, okay? They would want to say, because now we're not hiring people at 40,000 because of new requirements coming across. We pretty much hire everyone pretty close to master's degrees in that because the state's requiring the master's degree. So we're hiring them at around 50,000, we're losing them at 75,000, okay? So we're there on that. Okay, reduction in attorney fees, I know Ms. Bettio's been looking at that, and is easily, probably, when you're paying $600,000 a year in attorney fees. Now, the other one I didn't see until I saw earlier, okay, was the reduction of this secretary over, if we have a business manager, the business manager secretary reports to the superintendent, now would move over, because that's a separate job, move over to the business manager, and we wouldn't have that extra need then for the secretary over the treasurer's department that we have. So you can add another 60 onto that. So yeah, about $500,000, $500,000 a year. That would pay this up here at no cost. It's paying the interest, it's paying all of it. Okay, and then bus replacement 2016, as we said, that schedule, okay, goes away. So then we buy more buses, and we keep our bus replacement schedule.
Okay. I'm gonna
And that's-
ask you
that's
to
it.
wrap
That's
it up,
pretty
Raj,
much-
'cause,
that's wrapped up.
Okay. And I appreciate the time you put in this, so give us time to read what you wrote. I'm gonna get back, so if you go back, I wanna go back and talk about this year, because that's what we gotta deal with right now. I understand your passion for business manager, and I think that position, along with presentations we'll have in April on the kindergarten, and also some other things, we'll have to take all these up and have our own discussion about that again, but I'm gonna resolve that question today on a business manager.
No.
I know where you're at, very clear, and we'll address that at the appropriate time, but what I'd like to get out of here today with all of us is how we're gonna address this year, what we're gonna plan. I know the architects have made a recommendation on what they wanna get done this year. I wanna understand how we're gonna fund this dollar amount, if that's what we all agreed to right now. And then I understand, Rob, the business manager has to be addressed, and if we do go that route, that person will be in place going into the following year. And also, obviously, that person will have a lot of input if we go that direction on future years. of what we do.
And that's my whole,
And I get
contention. My contention is, in order to put any type of plan of this magnitude in, we need focus. We need someone there who's gonna manage the business side of our operation.
I would agree, I would just add that you need financial resources to pay for it. The current 5-year forecast, the one that was submitted in October, shows in the 5th year a $500,000 cash balance. Out of a $60 million budget, we passed a new levy in 2011 to last 10 years. To add 400,000 more to the budget, it would bankrupt us sooner, and we would have to go for operating funds sooner.
Yeah. But didn't I just show how you could get $500,000?
I think.
I just showed you how you could get $500,000 a year out of the forecast.
Rod, you're taking a lot of it from the
And
children.
let me just add.
Why
and
am I
Our
taking
levy
away-
was for the
this
children.
Why am I taking away from
Well,
the
the coordinators, and you're talking about a secretary, Betty and Franca are the two secretaries, they don't have three.
I'm not talking about it, no, I'm not.
Well, you said
There's,
60,000.
did you see the
bring
go
to
back and look at the
everyone's
organization
attention.
chart.
Okay, hold on,
Example.
hold on.
I can
want
put
one
names to
person-
that if you want.
Well,
Hold
I
on,
would
one
like
person at a time.
to
Yes.
I don't wanna give everyone.
with, and bring up to everyone's attention, even in the 5th year of the forecast, even if everything is so well, we end up with $5 million instead of 500,000. That is 1 month of operating money for this district. 1 month, $5 million. So I would say, business manager, yes, we get financial resources, bring in a business manager. As long as we can afford it, do it. I am all for that. What do we need? We need maintenance staff. We have 11 buildings, and Jason, would you like to share how many maintenance guys we have to work in 11 buildings?
3 technicians, 3 grounds people.
11 buildings. So we have had over the years, and the former board, Karen Powers, you were there for this levy ask, we have cut and cut and cut. We passed that levy with stating we would stay status quo. That was not bringing back those positions. If we're going to bring back those positions, we need to bring in financial resources to cover it. And I want to make sure we go on record to say that that is how we pass that levy. I don't want my integrity put on the line that we overstep that by going outside of the status quo.
I want to make sure we're all, on the first board meeting this year, I had asked Rod to look at the business manager. He did it. He made his presentation. I thank you for that. He showed you ways to fund it. I think we all have to go back, read this in depth, all the stuff he gave us. We'll discuss this again. Okay, and thank you. And just like I've asked about, Pat, your pledge was the all-day kindergarten. I believe you're going to do in April, I believe. You're going to do your presentation. That's what we asked for. We're going to get it. We have to then take all this information, figure out how we're going to, if we're going to do this, how we're going to fund it, where's the money going to come from? Rod gave his opinion. We need to look at it and see if that's valid or not, and make a decision. It's not going to be done today. So, what I want to do is, and I'll give you a chance second, Jerry, is get past this business manager right now. We know it's out there. We have to address it. But what I want to make sure is, I want to understand exactly what we're doing this year. to get some of these things, like the gas line, you had your list up there. I wanna make sure we're all in agreement, that's the priority right now. We know we got issues in funding the rest of this, whether it's a permanent improvement levy or whatever it is, how are we gonna go forward? And Rod's position is we need to get a business manager to get his input going forward and get a plan. So all those things gotta be addressed, but right now, today, this morning, what are we gonna do this year? I mean, the architect's made a recommendation. It's more than what we got in a permanent improvement fund right now to fund what he said last board meeting. So are we gonna tap into the general fund this year to get this stuff done? That's what I'm gonna get done this morning. And so, you know, and again, thanks for,
Okay, here's the
presentation.
thing, the
Let's move.
permanent improvement fund, okay, as of, the money goes back in there, it goes to June 30th.
Right,
And I think we'll get receipts in there after that, am I correct?
is that right?
When will be the next receipts?
These summer projects are funded by the permanent improvement funds as they come in. And typically in March, the board does have a PowerPoint presentation that is presented with the experts identifying the priorities in the district, and we move forward with the public bid process. As a public purpose entity, public purpose money, by law, we do take every contract to the board. I want a point of clarification about that. And the reason for that is to protect the district. Fred, when you sat in on the Coke contract, one of the final things you said to me is, please tell me that an attorney's gonna look at this and that you do bring contracts to the board that are legally reviewed. There are things that can go in contracts that can be very costly for districts and be very dangerous and risky when it comes to public purpose funds. That has always been the practice in the district,
not.
as well as the group, Braun and Steidel Architects, were hired way long time ago, and that practice that the former business manager did has been continued. And we do need to talk about the envelope study, but we did present on March 17 the recommendation of the administration for the summer projects this year.
Okay, on that, okay, we have not always taken every contract, and on a lot of contracts, and what a practice in other districts was there is a set of rules, okay, attorney that protects the district. You just get that standardized set, make sure that's in every
You're right.
contract.
You're right.
And that's it, so they
That
don't
is
have to
correct.
review every
That's correct,
contract.
and they don't. When there's
Yeah,
a
that's what you
question
said, but you
about,
just told everyone they
when
had to
there's
review
a
it.
question about language that's in the contract, that is going before the attorney.
I have a question. I
Sure,
have several
come on.
questions. I have reviewed this presentation on this envelope study for the past 3 weeks. It's making my head swim. Second of all, the comment was made today that the superintendent shares the business managers, and I'm not gonna get into that, but I wanna know, yeah, I know, Ms. Bugren, you have certification for business manager. What does the superintendent have?
He has
To
a
do this.
superintendent certificate, and you can do that function with that certificate.
It's legal.
He doesn't have to have a
No,
certain,
he doesn't.
like
He
they
has
do?
a superintendent.
Okay, I sent an email to Mr. Bonacci in regards to the study that was done, and I don't remember ever this coming before the board for approval to the expenditure. And I asked at that time, it was possibly in the 5-year forecast, but was it ever approved by the board to spend this money on this piece of paper? And how much did we spend on it?
The superintendent, by law being the purchasing agent, has the authority to put through services, purchase services, consultations, by law in his capacity. And the contracts that go before you, or the approvals for what we're talking about with this envelope study are subject to your approval when it's a public bid process. When it's triggered to be a public bid process, it does go through the board if the project's gonna exceed $25,000. The envelope study and the exterior structure, that problems that you've reviewed, have been determined by the licensed architect and engineer, which, by the way, by law, they have to write the specifications for. A business manager, unless they're a licensed architect or engineer, cannot write public bid specifications. That's the law. So why did they do this? Because they're the very people who will be involved in drawing up the specifications. They are the very people that are the experts in the field to determine the priorities in this district that are the more dangerous down to the least necessary.
I understand that, but it says here that the job that you're taking on, the responsibility is to supervise the maintenance, operation, repair of all buildings owned and leased by the district, and advertise for bids and develop requests for proposals. Now, this is not a proposal, this is a study that is telling us what is wrong with all the buildings and how much it's going to cost potentially, and what his charge is for doing this study. So I'm asking you, when was it board approved for this study to be done, and how much did it cost?
Jerry, Jerry, researching this, I think, and again, I wasn't on previous boards, but I think when a board approves a 5-year plan, which that was in the 5-year plan, when you approve that plan, you're basically approving that study of that 5-year plan. The other bigger question is down the road is we need to understand is there is no cap on what the superintendent or treasurer can approve in dollars. Like this is $80-some thousand. So is there a cap on where we go, how far before you come to a board on expenditure? 50,000, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000? I'm not a bid, I'm just talking about this. So that's a whole different issue. But to answer that, I believe that's, if it was approved by the board on a 5-year plan and it was in the 5-year plan, I think.
That's what we're told. I know,
I mean, that's what
something we
I'm
need
told, but
to
that's
look
something
at
we
because.
that's the best I can answer your
yeah.
question at this time.
Well, it bothers me that this study was done, and if we implement this architect to do this, he's taking in 3 or 4 different places, 10% here, 15% here, and his cost, and we're doubling and tripling the cost of what needs to be
First of
done.
all, why would
Here's
it
part of
bother
the
you?
problem.
One at a time, one at a
The
time.
purpose of
But
the
why would it
study-
bother me? Because this is people's money
But the
that we're
purpose of
spending.
the study was to get us out of the reactive mode, because all we can do is react because of our financial situation. We've only been able to react to crisis when a building floods, or the lights go out, or the boiler breaks down. This was to put a plan in place, and after we complete phase 2, because some of these things need to be done in tandem to get the result, the money-saving result. This was done to put the district in a proactive mode so that we can start to set a routine maintenance schedule that eventually, once we get through these priorities, especially if we have income or resources to pay for these items, this district can function by taking care of its facilities in a routine maintenance scheduled manner. So this should not bother you, because the very thing you're saying is we've lost focus. And what this is trying to do is put the focus back into place.
I understand that,
At a
but
$60,000 cost.
Well, let's talk
Ah,
about
that's half the
lawsuits
business
and how
manager's
much
salary
that's
for
been
this year.
costing us.
Okay, let's go back. Let's go back and talk about the approval. Okay. The approval, saying, unfortunately, we approve a forecast that goes out 5 years. There's a lot of things at $60 million forecast per year, 5 years. Okay, $300 million. Something large. 4 out of 5 board members didn't even know this was in the forecast.
Well, then they didn't read the.
And,
details.
well, yeah. There's a lot of things, because until a point in time, the whole forecast isn't even given to us. But what we're looking at is,
What do you mean it doesn't give it
It's
to us?
given.
I had to come in, when I came as a
Yeah.
board member, I had to request the backup detail. And that's where I found out that it was in the forecast,
Oh, like,
in
it's
that
also-
backup
it's-
detail,
it's
when I
written
asked what that
in the
particular line item
assumption.
was. Okay, but anyway, we're not gonna go past, we're not gonna, forget about that. I can't understand how, a $60,000, and it originally went in at 84. The purchase order was wrote for 80-some thousand dollars. We're fortunate enough that it only cost us a little under 60,000. And I agree with Mr. Bonacci that we need to really look at some expenditures here. Now, I mean, there's a
Well,
lot,
I was
we
really
have,
not
we gotta
prepared for
move
this
on a lot of
today.
stuff real fast.
Nobody is.
Nobody is.
Nobody is.
So-
Come on,
so
can't we
let-
go
I wanna
on?
go
Please,
back,
Fred.
I wanna go back to the question you asked, and keep us online. He asked about the funds for the permanent improvement levy. I'm looking, keep coming back to the basic thing that was done at the last board meeting. We talked about the gas line replacements, which was what there. We talked about the drainage issues at Highland and Lakeview, and also the paving improvements. Those are the high items that he wanted to address this year. We're not gonna have a business manager in place if we go that route, so we have to make a decision today. I keep coming back, I'm trying to bring us all back. We gotta address this. Rod asked a question to you, the $560,000 that's on here, how much is in the permanent improvement plan today to pay this, and when does it get replenished? That's the question, so that's the question I need to, I'm a very black and white person, so just bring it down. I'm a business guy, so bring it down so I can understand what we have in there right now to fund this, when does it get replenished, and if it's not gonna fund all this, do we go in the general fund for another $100,000 to finish this piece for this year? That's my question. So someone can answer.
Here's, first of all, just so everybody understands what permanent improvement is, these are monies collected from taxes paid. The 2013 calendar year tax bills went out in January. So as people pay those tax bills, the district begins the funds to come in. So what's in there right this minute, I don't know, I was not prepared.
$16,000 according to your last statement. That's a projection at the balance. Okay, if I look at your last, you can call it up on your last,
That was at the end of February.
no,
At
that's
this
projected
minute, I
year
don't
in the
know.
balance, 16,000, yeah, projected.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, okay, let me go online
Well,
here.
But
wait,
besides
wait.
that-
I'll call it up and tell you what.
I don't-
Whatever, finish.
Okay. That being said, the monies come in as they are collected. And if we collect them all, it's approximately $600,000, of which about $240,000 is for debt. What the district has always done, and what I've helped facilitate, was in the event that we've started the project and we don't have the funds in the permanent improvement levy fund yet, we set aside a purchase order out of the general fund, because by law, we have to set aside the funds. We have to encumber the money by law in order for it to be a legal expenditure of the board before the board can enter into any activity being purchased. Once the permanent improvement money comes into the fund, we then make an adjustment and we charge the permanent improvement fund in its entirety. In the event that we didn't collect the full amount in the permanent improvement fund, or there were change orders attached to the projects that were done that exceeded the amount we had, the general fund has picked up the difference. So if you look at the 5-year forecast under the capital outlay line item, it's projected about $1 million every year spent out of the general fund to assist in capital purchases, maybe for instruction, which could include computers, it could include student desks, it could include smart boards, and or additional project money to pay for things that get done. When we have a high priority like the gas line, the projects that were presented, the roof, the sub-zero weather created an issue with our roof over the gymnasium. That was presented on March 17th. We feel that's a critical project. We want to move forward with that. The administration wants to move forward with that, and we hope the board is with us, and with the Brown and Steidle recommendations as well. We will utilize every penny of the permanent improvement funds for those projects, and it will spill into general fund to cover the difference, if there is one.
So, based on what you just stated, if you look at the $240,000 in debt, which I think is part of it's the buses we did a long time ago, we have $360,000 a year in permanent improvement funds to play with. approximately.
In a calendar year.
In a calendar year, in a
Okay.
calendar year. I
In
know
a
it comes
calendar
in-
year. So your summer projects,
Okay, let me finish first. Okay, so $360,000 in a calendar year, based on when the taxes are paid by the public, whether it's in February, whether it's in August or whatever it is, May, whatever. Okay, so you got $360,000 in a perfect world on a calendar year. In improvement, because you got $240,000 in debt every year that you gotta pay off.